Hello everyone, this is Narendra Kamra. I welcome you all to join this webinar on managing whole nine yards. I would request you guys, in case you have any question or anything you want to share, to raise a flag or to send me a chat so that I can unmute one of you and you can share your question or any concern about that. I think that should be okay with all. So I think whenever anybody would join, I would try to recap few stuff, but probably I won't be able to recap everything. So I'm starting now on this. Again, I mean, if you have any question, please send me a chat. I would stop right there and try to answer that. In a nutshell, I'm gonna cover few areas, especially like process groups in general, knowledge areas, and fundamentals of scope management, and what all critical pieces are there generally you face when you really execute a project, being a project manager. Uh, so I'm gonna go forward now. About myself, I'm running one company here in Gurgaon, vDoIT Technologies. I have 16 years industrial experience to work as an architect, project program manager, delivery head, and primarily in US for 10 years. And PMP, CSM Project Plus, a few of the certifications I have achieved. I'm a regular PMP practitioner. I'm consultant in agile transformation, and I'm also volunteer contribution in education and trainings in few of the universities around. I'm author of a couple of blogs which I thought I should write. I published that on LinkedIn. I think I should move forward. Would you like be would you guys be interested to introduce yourself a little bit? If that's okay, I can unmute one by one. I think I should take it now. All right. Uh, I'm starting with the project management process groups as most of the people who have been into project management and typically into waterfall methodology, they know that what all stages are there, what all processes are there, and how these are like synced up with the PMI methodology, with the PMI standards. So generally, these are divided into five process groups: initiating, planning, execution, monitor and control, and closing. So each of these process group is very important, very critical, and I mean, if we are going really with the waterfall methodology, none of them can be actually bypassed. So I'm sure you might be knowing like what all these mean. That initiating means like whenever there is any business objective, business goals being set by the sponsors, we generally start our project management with the initiating of that project. And when we go with the planning, generally all our management, all our plans related to our cost, schedule, scope, quality, risk, all that part is being done. I mean, planning part is done in this planning phase. When we come to the stage of execution, then that means that I mean, whatever we have planned, maybe a WBS, maybe a schedule, now is the time to get on the ground and get things done. But when things are being done, it's not like you can just get relaxed and you can just keep things going on. You have to put a tab on that. You have to monitor and control. You have to find out the variances, like how good you are doing on your project. So that's something we call monitor and control. I'm telling in a very brief because that's not the focus of this webinar, but it would be important to like start with the basic things. So when I say the closing, I mean it may be the last step. Again, it's as important is the planning or execution or even other process groups. So if we don't capture our lessons well and we don't leverage it in the next project, then there is no point of like doing a good project. If anybody has any question, I can answer. I mean, please initiate the chat if you want. All right. So to run all these step-by-step process groups, PMI has recommended 9 management knowledge areas, which you must be like very aware and very comfortable doing those in those areas actually. So let me start with the scope management, which is the most important. I mean, you there is a high chance that you make your cracks in this part of the management and then you get suffered in other management areas. So scope management is one, and time management, that means scheduling, your critical path analysis, all that stuff. So stakeholder management, knowing like what all benefit you are going to give to your external stakeholders, knowing that what all team you are going to build and which part of your project is going to perform by whom is actually called the stakeholder management. When I say cost management, that means like, yes, I mean, you are not probably doing you may be doing the non-profit projects too, but most of the time, whenever your project gets initiated, there are always some business objectives behind that. So when I say business objective, you have to definitely work on your return of investment, and you have to work on how, like in your different phases of project, how you're going to spend your money and like measuring them in the right way. So that's what we call the cost management. When I say the quality, I mean, quality is a very subjective term, but of course, I mean, if we are going to build some product or maybe a project, so we have to see like how good we are doing. I think should be very much understandable to everyone. When I say HR, I mean, we are dealing with a lot of resources, so we should, a smart project manager generally manages it in a way where he get the right people for the right assignments and make the right dependencies among each other so that there is a high chance of success. When I say risk, it's again very critical for any successful project management that you identify, you quantify, and you make some contingency plans, mitigation plans. So that basically that is about the risk management. And say communication, like in a big project where your team may be in the number of 50 or 100, so it's quite possible that you may not be spending like equal amount of time with all those stakeholders. So there may be possibility that if somebody is at the VP level, you may be meeting him probably once in 1 month, and if it's a team member, you may be meeting him every hour. So, but I mean, if we go with a stringent plan, you have to be very clear on like what time, what energy you are going to put on what level of communication. So that's about the communication management plan. I'm telling you in a very simple language because I mean there are different tools, techniques, methodologies within the communication management, which can be another like a big area to cover. When I say the integration, I mean that's a part where like you connect all the dots. When you are doing all different managements, when you are doing running all the project process groups, then integration management is like connecting all of them to achieve your goals. Uh, Anybody has any question on that? All right, I'll take it now. So what are the fundamentals of scope management when I talk just about scope? Because that's the idea of this webinar, that we have to share our experience. We have to just go through the fundamentals, which we already know, but it's always good to like recall them and discuss on them so that we get more and more clear on this. So when I say scope management fundamentals, of course, plan is the topmost thing, that I first plan that how I'm going to manage my scope. And that's something which comes from my initiating process group, in which my sponsors, if they dictate that my business objective is to earn this many dollars and in this much duration, then I have to like align my scope management as per that. I would definitely go through some examples where you would understand this process better. When I say collect requirements, that means like whatever, if I talk just about the IT projects, then it's about like getting getting the information from your stakeholders, from your business, who have been given the target from their sponsors to accomplish some business objective. So that's more like a collect requirements, which is like there is no hard and fast rule, but there are some recommended techniques which I will go through in the next couple of slides. And then it comes as scope. Okay, now you know that your business wants some screens to be built, some integrations to be introduced, but I mean how it impacts your existing system, or how it gives you a challenge to do even the procurement, or even to hire some specific skills and all that. So this is called the scope. When you have requirements, maybe 100 requirements, but when you do the analysis of the requirement, you actually make a boundary out of those requirements. And you just, if you, I mean, I would come to the baselining of scope later on, but once you define the boundaries, then it is each intrusion in that boundary is actually countable, which is more managed with your like change control board and all that, which is again another big topic. So then I come to WBS. I think everybody knows that work breakdown structure. I mean, if we have requirements, high level requirements, then the time comes to do the feasibility and to understand that how we can deliver it. Behind each implementation or the requirement, what all action items or what all tasks or assignments are required. So this is what we call the WBS. And then once things are in line, once things are scheduled, once things are tied up with some resources, then the time comes to monitor and control. Then we actually validate the scope. Okay, whatever has been implemented, is that what actually business wanted, or we have built something, I mean, we were dreaming. So that's about the validation of scope. And when I say control the scope, that's something that when like business is not like what they told you 6 months before, they may be like uh, still stringent on that. They may come up with something else, which may be required by the market, which may be required by their sponsors. So that's the time when you actually bring your change control board in the picture, that any change request comes and you handle it in a proper structured way, where if you need more time, you know, more money, and you have the right justification for that. I try to cover these bigger topics in a very brief, but I would definitely elaborate if anybody has any concern, question, or confusion behind that. Okay. All right. Let me move forward. I think everybody has been familiar and everybody is smart enough to understand that. All right. When I say the scope management, what is the standard process? So generally we have few steps that we plan scope management. As I told, like before we jump into collecting the requirements, we should know what all ways we are going to use. So that's generally captured into your plan scope management. Then we start collecting the requirements from all the meaningful stakeholders. Then we define the boundary across the requirement. We create WBS, we create scope, we validate scope, and we control the scope. I've taken some example. I mean, there has been sometimes concerns even raised by my team. We don't understand what is the difference between scope and requirement and WBS. So I have taken some examples, maybe meaningful for all of us, but it depends on the project, like how what kind of abstraction you take. So it all depends on that. So for example, like if I start with the initiating process, any project management team, any project manager is given one business objective, that okay, I want 3 million US dollar revenue growth in financial year 2015 by extending localized products in China. So they have been having some product in US, but now they want to extend that to China, for which they want to localize their product. So this is something very high level, which if I give this statement to one developer, he would be like banging his head on wall. He will not, he will never understand that. So when I then I come to the next level, okay, requirements. Then I say, okay, I now need 3 new workflows with 16 UIs with high-end integration security. So that is something which a person who is not just understanding the requirement, but also understanding the user interface, who is also understanding the user experience, is the right person to get those requirements. And when I say the scope, okay, every time whoever is giving me the requirements may not be able to understand what underneath systems are going to be impacted. So then this scope comes in the picture, where I have to draw a boundary across the requirements. Okay, I need to change my OSP, Oracle Services Bus. I need to change my work server, and I have to do the implementation of 30 new business rules. So that's the scope. Then I come to the next level. Okay, now I have to convert my requirements in a deliverable format. I have to decompose my requirements into a testable form. So then, like design of managers UI and controller, coding and testing, all these animals comes into the picture. So it's all level of abstraction. I mean, the people who are working in Agile, they may probably correlate it to the epic user stories, themes, and that's also nothing but the level of abstraction in the different methodologies. All right, I'm moving forward. Please raise your hands or send me a chat if anybody has any question. All right, what is a project scope? I mean, there are some fundamental properties, but I mean, just going through PMBOK 5 or 4 or 3 version probably doesn't help us to correlate with our real-time experiences. So I have I mean, few questions that came in my mind when I was executing these projects. So I brought those questions here as well. So defining a project scope is an iterative process. So is it an agile? Sometimes people get confused. I say yes, it is agile, because agile also gives you an opportunity to improve yourself. So the same happens with the project scope. When you are not like understanding the requirements in a way which could be implemented, then of course you have to run that cycle of interviewing or questionnaire or the surveys one after another. So that's why I call it an agile. So high level requirements, yes. I mean, a business objective is there, but I mean, that should be also mapped to the real achievable requirements, real achievable work breakdown structure. So I recommend that we should always maintain a traceability from business objective to requirement to work breakdown structure to the test plans and so on. So as if we can maintain that, I don't think there can be any crack where things can fall apart. uh, become more detailed, translating into deliverables. So it should be detailed enough that, I mean, where you can think of implementation, you can think of the possible risk because of technologies, because of dependencies, and your project scope should also more and more you go through your iterative cycle of requirements or the scope gathering, you come across more and more risk and assumptions, which is actually an opportunity uh, to get the right answer from the right stakeholders, or to even like do your better risk analysis. So if we on the right hand side, I just wrote down my observation that, I mean, it is very important. I mean, being a project manager, that you understand business objective very well. If you don't understand, then it's hard to get convince your team members and to the people who are so much technical that, I mean, they just like create the screens and do the coding. So it's very important. Like if they know the value behind those, then of course there is a chances that errors will be less and less. So risk analysis management always active. It's not like risk management is something, I think that's the most I would say an active management process group in throughout the life cycle of a project. So if more active you are, you will be always identifying good risk. You will be working on that. Your all plans would be intact because of that. So requirements can be duplicate, but we need to make sure that, I mean, these are unique and discrete requirements, so that when we map it with the testing or map it with the scope, we are like doing as low as possible in the overlap of requirements. Influence of feasibility. Sometimes it happens like if you have been a technical project manager, and when a business analyst is explaining what he is dreaming about, what he is getting from his business objective, there is a chance that you will start suggesting him technical solution, or you will start like pushing him back because of the technical complexities or infeasibility. But that's not suggested when you are actually collecting the scope of requirements. So you can take it, do further analysis, and then I mean, get back with the proper facts and the numbers. I think I should move on. Anybody have any question? All right. Project scope statement. What is this? I mean, project gets decomposed into products and managed accordingly. So if we see this flow, project scope statement, product scope description, I mean, this sometimes gets confusing to many guys. Like we sometimes talk about product, we sometimes talk about project. But in a typical life cycle of a project, I mean, even within a project, you define some products. If I say products, that means it can be your SRS, system requirement specification. It can be your business requirement specification. It can be your test plan or test procedures or test cases. So that is what we are calling here the product scope description. That if I'm having a project scope statement, then I'm also working on like on the definition of my test procedures or the requirements. Then if like those even those deliverables has to be accepted by your sponsors, by your clients, or whoever is your whoever is on your receiving side. So project deliverables, once your product acceptance criteria is clear, then you talk about project deliverables. That okay, now the end product is ready, then I mean how you're going to deliver that. So that's also covered in your project scope statement. Project exclusion, that's very important. Sometime, especially on the non-functional requirements, we take many things with assumptions, unwritten assumptions that, okay, this would be covered. Windows, I mean, if I consider just Microsoft Explorer, probably I'm not considering Firefox or the Mozilla or sorry or the Safari. So such kind of specific exclusions or inclusions should be mentioned in your scope statement. It's quite possible, like when you are writing your assumptions, maybe a risk or even an issue for a stakeholder. So it's very like just to come out of your thoughts, you should write assumptions, whatever basic it is, because that can be an alarm for your business stakeholders, and they may think of some different strategy or maybe different plans for the entire project. This is requirement collection methods. I mean, many ways to do that. If we Because I'm right now talking about waterfall only with the PMI standards. So these are the suggested ways to collect the requirements. But in Agile, there are different ways. So we generally do the interviews of the stakeholder with the stakeholders. We do the workshops, group activities, questionnaires, user observation or prototyping. Prototyping is also something very close to your agile way of doing the things, where you make a small product, show it how it is working, and get like feedback and improve and improve. So I mean things are overlapping between waterfall and agile in here, but that's how the things go. Uh, So when we collect the requirements, it's very important to know that what kind of dependencies we have on the schedule and interest of stakeholders. So it's quite possible you have 10 stakeholders, but actually you have to get requirements from two of them, and they may be tied up with some other project. So we have to smartly manage that time with them and get with the right schedule and uh, I mean, convenience to those guys. So generally, co-located teams are more productive in requirement collection. That's why we generally see that a services-based company, especially in a global delivery model, they prefer flying people from their base to client location so that, I mean, there is a low chance of losing anything in the requirements. Expert judgment and business analytical skills are the key. Actually, if we have any domain expert who understands business more than technology, there is a high chance that we would get our requirements a lot better than the other way. So expert judgment, more experience you have in this, the better requirements you can capture. So what should be a baseline requirement? How it should look like? So of course it should be acceptable to key stakeholders. It's very common that we write requirements, but we sometimes assume that, I mean, because I mean we got inputs from the client or the business. So I mean we are some most of the time we are overconfident that whatever we had captured during discussion is the requirement. But I suggest that we should get a written email approval, and even if that requires us to give a complete walkthrough of the requirements, many times we should do that because that is going to be our foundation of a successful project. So that should be consistent. I mean, our requirement should be clear and consistent throughout, and it should be complete. It should be traceable. As I said, like traceable means it can be traceable within the scope of requirement, or it can be traceable at the level of even the WBS or test cases as well. So it should be testable, it should be measurable. There are many ways depending on your kind of project. How do you measure? There are some measure mechanisms suggested by PMI also, where like you can measure in the terms of dollars, you can measure in the term of variances, that how far you are going from the baseline requirement to the change requirements. Uh, Also, like I have one experience like where now when people are moving towards agile a lot. So it's very important that such decisions could be taken at a very initial stage. I personally faced a situation where like one big 2 million project was like one third of its way, and then all of a sudden management were like nervous about the transparency, visibility because of the global delivery model and for other reasons, and they decided to go for agile. So it's a very complicated situation. So I would suggest that if we have to take such recommendations, it should be done during the initiating process, even before planning. All right. When I come to work breakdown structure, I think most of us must be knowing what this looks like. It is nothing but it's a decomposition of your requirements. It's decomposition of your high-level scope, which actually subdivides the deliverable WBS. If I say design is one WBS, then I decompose into design of UI, design of data access object, design of integration object. So that can be further divided to any level. It should be divided to work package level. When I say work package, it means something which you can like deploy, something which you can deliver and show it like it's completed. So it should be decomposed to that level. So we are able to reliably estimate. And yes, of course, it should not be like you brought some item in the WBS, but actually that's you are not sure whether it's going to be taking 1 month, 2 month, or 1 day or 2 day. It should be estimate. It should be able to estimate. So and we should be able to also find the cost and time. Cost, when I say cost and time, that means when I start associating my one piece of WBS with some individual who is being paid some dollars or rupees or anything, then I know that what is the cost of that. So my each that level of decomposition should be at that detail. So, of course, I mean, this is not something where like any method or tool can help you much. It actually gets better once you are more experienced in that. If you have, like, it's very much recommended that you take inputs from your team and your contributors because that gives you a chance to take their buy-in, and also something technical which you may not be aware. Every PM may not be technical, so they can get right inputs from your team members. So estimation technique, there are many, but I mean, depending on your project, you can go with top down, bottom up, PERT, or parametric, whichever way works best for you. Critical path analysis must require. Generally, we ignore that. Most of the projects don't do critical path analysis, and that sometimes causes your project to fail. So when I mean I'm a big fan of MS Project. If you guys know about that, then of course I mean that gives you an automatic critical path where if you want to change, I mean any if you want to move out or move in something to ease down your critical path, you can do that. Of course, looking all other logistics around. And there is another 8 to 80 hours rule, which you might be aware that, I mean, any decomposition of your task into subtasks should be at a level where you can estimate it to do for 8 to 80 hours timeline. This is one sample of work breakdown structure. Not a very good example, but because this just captures task, subtask, and the idea of those. But I think if we go with the MS project kind of format, that is the I think the right way to capture other critical things too. That it's important that we should have a unique ID against each WBS item, and it's important to understand that there is a difference in effort, duration, and schedule of these items. When I say effort, that's probably something I say that, okay, this task can be done in 5 days. When I say duration, then I say that this task can be done from July 15 through this date. When I say schedule, then of course, I mean that is little ahead of the duration that I mean we have to, if we have any dependency or if we have any on the module or any individual, we have to schedule in the right way. Allocation is critical, but sometimes you don't have the right resource at that time, so you can put some like symbolic resource or something with a flag that okay, this task cannot be achieved. But still, if you do a critical path analysis, those tasks would be always like visible in that. So track of baselining and performance, typically in waterfall, like when you when you do put a lot of thought, put a lot of analysis into your scope management, then you of course tag it with some baseline. You baseline it in a way where if any change comes because of any market requirement or your client requirement, you keep a track of that. And I mean, that's why like we call the term scope freeze that, okay, now we are freezing the requirement. Any change would go through the change control board after that. I've been talking about stakeholders, but I mean, it's important to know what all these are about. Um, Please excuse me if you already know, because I would be repeating the same stuff. So stakeholders, generally we divide into two groups. One is external, which is very critical when we talk about the scope, when we talk about the requirements. And they focus on their own needs, where like project sponsors are interested to see the ROI of your project. End user want to see what all great features your project can bring, which can make their life easier. So that's one side of the stakeholders, but another side of the stakeholder is your team, the ones where you have more authority and command to run the project. So they're like project your team members, your champion of changes, your analysts, and all those can be your internal stakeholders. Stakeholder management plan must be identifying at least all external holders with 100% certainty. I don't think it's possible, and I mean I have never seen in my career that I mean you can find that with 100% certainty. Sometimes like in UAT, you get surprises that there was one stakeholder who had some interest in your project and he like shuffles the whole stuff. Uh, Good luck to you all of you. I mean, if you're going through this phase. Influence. I mean, stakeholders, especially external stakeholders, we need to measure when we are doing stakeholder management. We have to be very smart and understand that what kind of political or authoritative influence this specific stakeholder has. So generally, even the stakeholder project management plan also covers that in the quantitative term. That if I have five stakeholders and I have to rate them out, that which stakeholder has the most influence on the project, I can quantify and capture it so that if next project manager comes in the picture, he should also take the inputs from that. Authority. I mean, you may be having some stakeholder who is loud in there, his voice, but he has no authority. So we have to make a smart call in that. Role and responsibility. Some stakeholder, maybe in especially like in a matrix organization, he may be given a temporary assignment to be responsible to deliver the business requirements. So, and in some cases, there may be somebody part-time available just to answer few questions. So it's for project manager, it's a challenge to make the right, I would say, boundary across different kind of stakeholders. Expectations. I mean, if sometimes like different business units have their own interest into your project, so it's important to know like what kind of return you are going to give to them and what are their expectations. Are they in sync or not? So I mean, a smart project manager generally like handles it in a way where like they share the benefits in a tangible way to them and get their buy-in in an effective way. Anybody has any question, concern? Um, I can take 2 minute break just to like breathe and for you to ask any question, please. All right. So I'm moving on. Uh, Generally, in a standard PMBOK, there are certain pieces I felt that which are generally being missed or underestimated, and I brought them up here. Hold of right stakeholders, initiating and planning, stakeholder and management plan. So we are, because we are introduced to a couple of stakeholders by our sponsors, we are generally in an impression that like their approval is good enough. But that doesn't happen until unless we do little more, I would say, networking and until we understand more insights about that. So it's very important that we do that job in the best possible way. And another critical piece which I believe is generally missed is mapping of your business objective and scope. That your business objective is in dollars, and but your scope is into systems. But how do you map that? And especially when you have to do the cost benefit analysis. Maybe sometime it doesn't make any sense to change a system which needs a cost of maybe $300,000 and but because the benefit related to that is not even that, you can't even measure the ROI behind that. So that kind of mapping is very important to make up and to understand and even convince to your sponsors. Risk analysis for scope. Generally, we think that risk is something very separate than other management plans, but risk is kind of antenna, is an alert mechanism throughout the cycle of our development. So when we see the scope, there, I'm taking very simple examples. Like there could be one system, maybe one business rule engine, which is carrying a license of 1 year with certain cost. And when you have been given that scope, and the system is going to be outdated or maybe going to be decommissioned, and you are not in a position to be certain whether I should raise that a risk or not. But I would say you should raise that risk, because risk is not something which would certainly happen. It is a probability, it is a chance which would definitely take the right attention of from your business sponsors. So dependencies, dependencies doesn't mean that dependencies on only modules. Dependencies can be availability of your stakeholders. It can be dependencies on a skillful resource. It can be a module. It can be a separate system being built by some other company or maybe some other department, without which your system can never be a complete system. So you have to be identifying all these dependencies well in advance. Detailed acceptance criteria, I mean, whatever system you build, whatever gold plating you do, whatever best system you make, but if you don't set your acceptance criteria, measurable criteria, there is a chance that they would be never accepted at your first attempt of delivery. So when I make my own project management plan, I make sure that I take the right approval on those acceptance criteria. For example, if I say that my system is going to support 100,000 users in the first phase of its release, then I should get that approved by my business sponsors, my users. So this is kind of one example, but there could be many other. So I generally make give a good focus to that criteria. So meaning of quality. So quality is endless. It is it may be it may mean something to somebody and it may mean nothing to somebody. So you have to be very sure in your management plans that what do you mean by quality. If I talk about user experience, then I it's good that you take some screenshots or some wireframes from your client, or at least get agreed on some tool which you are going to use. So this is the area where I really appreciate agile, where like there is no scope of gap between your business and your uh, IT or maybe some other implementation team. So we have to be very, I would say, collaborative, where maybe just documents couldn't help. Maybe your collaboration, high interaction with your teams can be the key to get the right meaning of quality. Generally, when scope comes under risk, I mean, you may be having your own experiences, but some statement which I faced a lot. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, any sponsor, any user, or any even my internal stakeholder, that means my team member, I mean, they come with an idea, they come with some requirement which is hard to implement at a very later stage. So wouldn't that be great? I'm a little scared of that statement. I forgot to mention in charter, but actually, I mean, charter is something which is the piece of business sponsors, which is the piece which actually got kind of dollar approval from sponsors to proceed with your project. And then business sponsor says, "Oh my God, I forgot to mention that I mean, it's not $3 million. I want actually $6 million." I'm taking very high level example, but then yours, I mean, your entire project can get shattered. So this is quite understood from my subjective statement I mentioned in my email. So this is kind of an ambiguity. This is quite understood from my subjective statement I mentioned in my. So you have to be very clear on the requirement. That's why I was insisting on like putting the right ID. It should be discrete. It should be testable, measurable. So no scope of there should not be any scope of ambiguity here. Do as I say. I mean, you are sometimes influenced with the authority by your managers, by your directors, VPs. I want this way. I don't care wherever you are. And then the blame game, then the like throwing muds here and there that gets started. So I mean, just be cautious that I mean nobody face such situation. And sometimes like estimation, I mean, when business starts estimating the technical modules, I mean, that's a nightmare. I mean, they would always start like this won't take much time. Why are you asking for more time or more money or more uh, resources? So just, I'm putting that just in my list so that we all are very cautious about that. Another is influences like I have done that in my past. I mean, if by chance your business sponsor has been technical in like in his history, there is a high chance of influence that he would say, okay, no, I mean, I have done that many times. Why you are resisting on that? Yeah. And two common terminology we use when we talk about like scope intrusion is gold plating. Mostly you guys must be knowing what is gold plating. I mean, delivering beyond what you have been asked. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. I mean, deliver whatever is mentioned, whatever is specified, whatever has been expected. So sometimes value additions help, but I mean that should be first get the right approval and get buy-in from your sponsor, then you should deliver it rather than giving surprises by your own. Another is scope creep. When I say like on the left-hand side, what all excuses have been there, they all are the starters of scope creep. So a good mature change control board generally helps to avoid such situations. So, I mean, good luck. I mean, if you can get a good change control board in your organization, your chances of success will be higher. So, what does support actually? So far, I talk like negative things which can intrude your scope, but there could be some supporting factors too in your organization. So that depends like what type of business they are doing, especially in high-tech IT companies. They are very, I would say, very liberal in uh, in managing the scope and even adapting your changes, scope, and all that. But sometimes you face a lot of challenges also there. So I would say like organizational process assets could be one supporting factor where like more steps or uh, workflow nodes are there, then there is a more chance that people would be little hesitant to change the scope. Policies and procedures, they most of the time they support your scope management. Historical information, that's very important. That one after another you are doing the project of the similar kind, you start, you generally capture like variance part, you generally capture what all lessons are there, quantitative as well as qualitative. So when you start keep capturing that in a disciplined manner, there is a chance that the similar project comes in your plate. You will look back and make a better decision and improve the chances of your success. So subject matter expert. I mean, we hear that term many times. That like one person working on one point of sale system in a retail gets definitely an expert in 10 years. So we should ensure that, I mean, whenever like we are defining a scope, we count such guys as the critical stakeholders and get their buy-in for any change into the system. So what other factors generally influence your scope management? Organization culture. I mean, especially the companies who have been living in a world where like global delivery model is nowhere acceptable, where contractors, employees, and such kind of like boundaries have been drawn, like what information has to be shared with one person but not with another person. So that kind of culture is also an obstacle to get the right requirements because people sometimes like to sit on I would say, the internal things of the system, and we need to we need to work on that in a smarter possible way. Infrastructure. I mean, if I talk about global delivery model, your like on-site team, offshore team, middle layer interfaces. So how good they perform. in understanding the requirements, in interpreting the requirements, and passing them on to their actually implementers, actually the developers at the offshore, is very, very critical. So we need to make sure that we put the right foot front, we put the right people in the business requirement gathering so that we could deliver the right quality of the system. New to global delivery model, again, this is related to organization culture. I mean, I have seen situation where people don't even understand what this model is about. People are sometimes insecure about their jobs and all that. And I mean, that creates sometimes a lot of resistance. And if we have a, I would say, blessing from their top management, there is high chance that you would get a good support from them and capture the requirements in a better way. So commitment to market, you may be working an organization like Google or Apple where like they have every release planned after every second week or third week. So then you have to be very market responsive and you should be very conservative or I would say smart in capturing the scope. You should not be overcommitted to the things and make the things more realistic. But change is inevitable. I think we all know that change is inevitable. That's why we have started loving agile, all the frameworks like which are in the picture right now about agile, because that gives us a lot more flexibility. But I mean, it's not like waterfall doesn't give you that authority, but there has to be a very strong structure to adapt that. So once, I mean, in a typical world, like when you receive any change request from your sponsor, from your stakeholder, it's suggestive that you don't just say them no to that. A good project manager at least does a good analysis of that, good does a good impact analysis in terms of time, cost, and quality and gives the right information to their sponsors. So then it's the call of change control board, which can include your portfolio manager, it can include even sponsor or the user. Then it's their call to give you go ahead or go or no go kind of decision. So this is a typical, I would say, PMI suggested approach that you have to have analyze the problem before you accept the change request. It's important that you also, like when you are doing the analysis, you also need to see like if similar requirement or similar change request has requested in the past too or not. If it has been requested in past, maybe you don't have to do much analysis and you have to just give the right answer. So in case your change gets accepted, you need to make sure that whatever documents, whatever important artifacts have to be updated, we have to do that, keeping the right versions of that. That's a typical, I would say, implement. It's your way of doing that in what kind of tools you are using, what kind of mechanism you are using. All right, I covered it very fast. So I think I can spend time on questions or concerns. I have totally shared my experience and tried to correlate it with the guidelines of PMI. But I'm sure you must be having a different experience on the same topics. So if you are if you want to share something about your experience, you are more than welcome. I can open this bridge line for any of you. So I think we are good. I would like to thank you all for joining this webinar, and I would appreciate if you can share your feedback so that we can improve more and more and deliver better than this webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye. Good night.